So New York City is learning the hard way that free never actually really means free. Somebody is always paying. And now the bill is coming due for Zohran Mamdani. He just went up to Albany and testified before the state legislature, ladies and gentlemen, essentially asking the state for more money for all his plans and big promises he made during his campaign, begging them to raise taxes on the most successful in the city. But lawmakers are saying not so fast. And so now Mamdani is basically being forced to tell New Yorkers he can't actually deliver on what he promised. As always, smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to tell me you like the video. And subscribe to stay locked in with future content. Let's get right into it.
That he's been on the job for just 42 days, but New York Mayor Mamdani today in Albany looking and asking for money. Political folk call it Tin Cup Day. The new mayor, already facing a $7 billion budget deficit, needs even more to pay for his agenda. Will the legislature and will Governor Hochul greenlight the mayor's plans for higher taxes on corporations and New Yorkers earning more than $1 million? Here's NJ Perkins.
After 2 weeks spent turning over rocks at City Hall, Mayor Mamdani announced today that the budget deficit is no longer $12 billion.
We have lowered that $12 billion gap to $7 billion.
Testifying before a joint budget hearing in Albany, the mayor admitted that his team had underestimated income from Wall Street salaries and bonuses and identified $1 billion in efficiencies, but insisted that it's not nearly enough.
I believe that the wealthiest individuals and most profitable corporations should contribute a little bit more so that everyone can live lives of dignity. That's why, along with raising the corporate tax, I'm asking for a 2% raise in personal income taxes on the most affluent New Yorkers.
But the mayor's request raised more than a few eyebrows.
We can't keep raising taxes and have people fleeing.
You're talking about free busing, free childcare, so that's pretty ambitious. The state is in serious fiscal trouble as well.
I have a big concern because of your philosophy. So do you have any concern about that?
I am confident that people will continue to stay in this city. There's no doubt in my mind that what should be driving all of our politics are the needs of working people.
Even those who agreed with Mamdani had questions of their own.
All right, well, we'll grow the pie, and we need to make sure that you have your priorities in order.
Governor Kathy Hochul has ruled out tax increases. Andrew Ryan of the Citizens Budget Commission says Mamdani shouldn't need higher taxes.
Increasing taxes risks alienating and driving away businesses that create jobs and people who disproportionately pay a lot in our taxes that fund our public schools, our police, our sanitation. We need to be competitive. That's why we should hold the line on taxes.
Andrew Ryan says the mayor can find the money in his own budget. But Mamdani clearly believes that popular support for taxing millionaires is growing and that state lawmakers may be underestimating that.
Yeah, so you can project confidence all you want. You can say wealthy New Yorkers aren't going anywhere, but confidence doesn't override incentives. This is the basic math. If people decide it's no longer financially beneficial to stay, they will leave, period. And once that happens, the people Mamdani claims he's fighting for will be the ones who feel it first. Because when high earners and major companies exit, the revenue doesn't magically reappear. It gets shifted. And we've seen this movie before, ladies and gentlemen. Just look at Chicago. Major corporations left, investment slowed, the tax base shrank, and then what happened next? Well, you got Chicago residents in an uproar because their property taxes are going up 115%. Yeah, and so homeowners are forced to absorb the difference because when the big check stops coming in, government still wants the money. And so the burden moves down the ladder. And so it's easy to promise redistribution. It's much harder to explain what happens when the people you plan to redistribute from decide they're done playing. And here's Mamdani having trouble answering to just that. Take a listen.
And you mentioned in your comments that, well, the top high income earners aren't going to leave, but they are. You said you were confident these people are staying. Can you say with certainty these high income earners who are leaving, can you say the financial sector is not going to leave if your policies are adopted for increasing taxes when they are leaving now, going to Florida, going to North Carolina, going to Texas? Isn't that a concern to you? And what happens with those individuals and that income? Because you could have people replace them, higher income earners leaving, but less income earners replacing them. That's a net loss. And I've seen numbers from $20 billion to $30 billion of net GDP loss.
So, I think that this conversation around capital flight is always a part of the conversation around any proposal to increase taxes. What I will say is that in 2021, when we had the same conversation, we were told there would be fewer millionaires as a result of increasing personal income taxes on millionaires.
But Mr. Mayor, I'm not talking about fewer millionaires. I'm talking about net taxable income, because with those statistics, and I've seen studies, you have higher income earners leaving, but replaced by lower income earners, but you have a net loss of like billions of dollars, $20, $30 billion of taxable income. And if you don't have $20 or $30 billion in taxable income, that goes away. So then you don't have as much money for your programs.
And so, New York City still has the most millionaires, more than any other city. 1 in 24 New York City residents is a millionaire. Now, you have to take into account that New York also has over 8 million people who live there. But New York still has the most millionaires in the world, but the rate of growth and share millionaire tax filers have been slipping and people are moving away. That's the real backdrop to Mamdani's budget crisis. You can tax the wealthy on paper, but if rich people choose to leave, that revenue never materializes. And a reporter asked Mamdani directly about property taxes, because that is something that is more so in his control, more than hoping for $7 billion from the governor, at least. And he was asked specifically whether New Yorkers should expect property tax increases as the city deals with its budget issues and if things don't change in his favor. And Mamdani, well, this was his answer. Take a listen.
My second question has to do with the budget. I know that you want to have Albany pass these tax hikes on corporations and on the wealthy, but if they refuse to do it, given the fact that it's an election year and the governor said she doesn't want to do it, will you have no other choice but to raise the only tax you can raise, which is the property tax?
So I am encouraged by the conversations we've been having, not only with the governor, but also with legislative leaders in Albany. And these are conversations about putting the city back on firm financial footing. When I was standing here in this room weeks ago announcing the fact that our conclusions were coming to the same level of assessment, at the very least, as the previous city controller, the current city controller, and the current state controller, we also said that we would then be updating those assessments as we got more information about Wall Street bonuses, as we got more information about the economic forecast, and as we also took savings measures of our own. And so in that time since, as I shared yesterday in Albany, that $12 billion deficit is now one that we have been able to bring down to $7 billion. And that's in part because of the revenues, the Wall Street bonuses, also an aggressive savings plan and a use of in-year reserves. I am encouraged by the conversations we're having with Albany about how we can bridge that $7 billion gap for these next 2 fiscal years.
And so what you basically just got right there was Mamdani giving you a word salad. That's all. He didn't even answer the question. And so you got Mamdani, who's made all these big promises on the campaign trail, and he's come to the realization that he can't actually keep any of them. At the same time, he already endorsed the governor heading into 2026, and she's made it clear, and let's not get it twisted, it is an election year. She's made it clear that she's not trying to raise taxes, especially on an election year, and she spoke about that here. Take a listen.
Those from outside the city already seem skeptical, and Governor Kathy Hochul has said she'll hold the line on new taxes that the mayor wants. Are you amenable to sending New York City a bigger piece of the state budget?
Well, let me say this. I already have. Since I've been governor, we've increased our support for New York City by 33% over my predecessor. That's $25 billion more they get for everything from housing to child care to education. So I have stepped up without anybody having to bend my ear, because I know it's the right thing to do to support New York City.
Mayor Mamdani also brushing off concerns that were raised that he's using this budget situation as sort of gamesmanship to get a wealth tax through, something he promised on the campaign trail. The mayor says those are 2 separate issues, the budget issue and what he believes should be reform to the tax code.
And so with all of this going on, ladies and gentlemen, you still have New York with all these issues. And this is what the people are saying they have to deal with. Look, let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. It says breaking. Drug tents are now popping up across Zohran Mamdani's New York City, with drugs being sold openly, prices boldly displayed, and police doing nothing. Now listen, there is a such thing as, there's parts of the country where you can have your dispensary, obviously, but this is not that. This is not licensed. You don't know what this person is selling, to who he's selling it to, who this person could be selling it to. But let's take a look.
Hey, yo, In the Bronx, still in waiting to change, bro. That's crazy, right? Guys been outside in the change, homie. Look at this. See that? They come in the Bronx, man.
Yeah, so you have that going on in New York, and at the same time, you have longtime residents who are saying that the city is not the same. Honestly, there's no way that people are actually visiting New York City, or people live in New York City and they enjoy living here. This is a woman who's 26 years old. She's been in New York her whole life, and she just feels like the city is headed in a downward spiral as far as things go. Let's take a listen.
There's no way that people are actually visiting New York City, or people live in New York City and they enjoy living here. I have lived in New York City my entire life. I have never seen something like this, ever. I've lived here 26 years. I'm currently driving through Canal Street. It literally looks like I just entered a third world country. Streets are absolutely disgusting. There's garbage everywhere. There's like cops just swarming the streets for no reason because they're not even doing anything. It literally looks like a cesspool full of people that are like imported here and placed here to ruin the city. It's like so disgusting. And then on top of that, you guys went and voted for an absolute imbecile to run the city who is going to do nothing except make the city worse. So enjoy New York City. This is definitely not the Big Apple anymore. I don't know what this is.
Wow, so you heard that, ladies and gentlemen. And so we will see. But I think New Yorkers are going to learn the hard way that if you expect the government to come in and save you from life's problems, to give you freebies and just to do everything for you, then you're probably sadly mistaken, and you're hoping for too much from a government. That's not what the government does. It never has been what a government is supposed to do. At least that's my personal opinion. But we'll see what ends up happening with New York. As always, smash a thumbs up. That's how I know you like the video. Subscribe to stay locked in with future content. And as always, until next time.